Today, on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking with grinder Mark Shaw. When did you first discover professional wrestling?
I think I might have been like 5 or 6 years old. I can remember growing up. You remember like Jumbo Video and Block. This is actually before Blockbuster, I think, was in Canada. So Jumbo Video down the street from where I grew up had a wrestling section. And my mom loved wrestling. My mom was always into bigger dudes, more muscle bound. So she loved it. She would put it on. And then when we got, I think I was like 5 or 6, maybe even younger than that, I was allowed to rent something from Jumbo Video once a week. Started off with all like, the normal kid stuff, but then it got into like, well, what's this? It's a wrestling show. It was like the Royal Rumble or whatever. And I kept renting the VHSs of like these major events. Then as a kid, I didn't understand any of that at that point, but that's where it started. I fell in love with like the pageantry and like the action and like the over the top characters. But like it's one of my earliest childhood memories is wrestling. It's all I really like. It started all the other fandoms that I have, all the other like hobbies and interests it all started from wrestling. So it all started from just being exposed to it young enough, but then being given almost an unlimited access to what was available to just watch whenever I wanted.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of younger viewers of the industry these days realize how difficult it was when you didn't have weekly viewing. We had to get VHSs, we had to get the random Saturday night main event. Like it wasn't every Monday night you could turn it on. At that young age, was there any particular performers that caught your eye where you were like, I really hope they're in this? Because it wasn't an every week thing. It was almost like
No.
a special event. Was there any performers that really caught your eye that you were like, I really hope they're on this show?
I think initially it started off with like Hogan, just because Hogan was the focal point of like most of wrestling from that era. Like, keep in mind I'm 40, so like when I got into wrestling, it was like early 90s. So Hogan was still big, but so was Macho Man. And like Ultimate Warrior was. So like I gravitated more to Macho Man because of the character, but then also he was to me a better wrestler than the other ones were. But then that transition into guys like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and things like that, where the athleticism and the skill level was higher, but that they still had character to them. They still had the ability to talk, and it translated more than just what was in the ring. But like, yeah, when Macho Man, like if I was looking for something, if I didn't see Macho Man on the cover, I probably wasn't going to pick up that VHS because I'd be like, no. Like, but if Macho Man was on it, I'd watch the whole thing. But that's the like, I'd either, when I learned how to fast forward and rewind, that's what I was looking for. I was like, okay, where's Macho Man?
It's fantastic that you didn't have to hide the fandom, that your family actually allowed it. Because in some households, wrestling is not allowed. Did
Mhm.
that translate to an opportunity to go to any sort of live events? I know they weren't as frequent, but you would get the odd, Cops Coliseum event, house shows, touring. Did you get a chance to see live wrestling at any point during this early fandom?
Yeah, very sparingly. Like I was too young for the first WrestleMania in Toronto. That was I think maybe I was just getting into it. I can remember watching that. But yeah, I went to a couple live events at Cops. My dad was never a big fan of wrestling, but understood very early on that I was really into it. So he would bring it to me and would keep his opinions to himself for the most part throughout the event. But yeah, they were so sparingly in Hamilton that going to Toronto wasn't difficult, but we didn't have the access of like the GO train wasn't as frequent then. So like you had to drive there. Being a kid growing up in Hamilton, like in the early 90s, if I couldn't find my way there, which I was too young to usually find my way there, I had to rely on somebody else. And it was a lot. It was just like me and my parents. So we didn't have a lot of extended family. I couldn't talk an aunt into driving me to Toronto. So I kind of had to take what I got. And it was very sparingly. I think I can remember maybe 3 house shows as a young kid. I won for one reason. I hyper specifically one of them that Shawn Michaels wrestled 3 times, and I'm assuming that other people that were advertised weren't there. But then Shawn Michaels kept coming back out. He wrestled 3 times, and I was just like, why? I was like, I like him, but like, why? What's going on? I didn't understand enough about the business at that point. I was just like, I don't understand what is happening. But yeah, it's I got the opportunities, but not as much, I think, as I would have liked as a kid.
Okay. And when was it that you kind of felt that kindling in the back of your mind that this is something that you don't just want to be a fan of, that you'd like to one day be a part of in some capacity?
Um, I would say probably by the time I was 15, but I had no idea how to even start that. Like most kids in the early 2000s or like in the 90s, early 2000s, we got into backyard wrestling. Um, Me and Parkside did it with a whole bunch of our buddies, and like and we just had no idea what we were doing. But we also had no. The internet was accessible, but not everyone had the internet, and I can remember having it and not even knowing how to use the internet to find how to get into it. So I knew about independent wrestling, but I didn't know about independent wrestling in Ontario. And I kind of stumbled into it through Parkside because he had started training. And I was like, this is an option. I can do this. And I dropped out of college after a month. I was like 18, just graduated like high school, went to college. He's telling me, he's like, we can do this. I'm like, we can do this? Awesome. This is what I'm doing then. Like, but I think I always wanted to be involved. I spent years not knowing how to even start doing that.
Well, I think sometimes it's as simple as just start, whether it's backyard wrestling or something, just start, get
Yeah.
involved, get there, and open yourself up to the opportunities. Can you take me through a little bit of the transition from backyard wrestling to proper training with Parkside? How did that go? Where did you train? Did you find it relatively easy?
I found some aspects of it really easy. To answer, we trained at Living Legends Wrestling Academy. Rip Impact also trained there, then eventually became one of the primary trainers there. That was based out of Stony Creek in Hamilton. When I started, I was always like a pretty athletic kid. I played a lot of like competitive hockey and stuff like that. I was always very athletic for I was also like much smaller of a person then. I was a very skinny kid. I didn't start actually putting on muscle mass until I got into wrestling, but I found a lot of the athletic part of it made sense to me, but also having spent so much time watching it, I could emulate a lot of it very easily. I didn't understand the point and purpose of why you would do this move in this part of the match or any of the psychology of it. But having maybe like an ADHD kind of thing, I could watch it enough times that I could do the moves, a lot of them right after the first time someone showed me. It was just the little simple mechanisms to keep everybody safe. It took me maybe a couple times to understand those. So adapting to it, it felt almost like second nature. I understood what I was doing, how to do it, why I'm doing it. It was just I would say maybe the more complex parts of a wrestling match took me a little bit longer to understand, but like the simple basics, I caught on to a lot of that really quickly, even the bumping and all that. I caught on to that really quickly, a lot quicker than I expected. And I think a lot quicker than the people training me expected as well.
Okay, all right. So take me through a little bit the path to the first official match. I'm sure you've had backyard wrestling matches, and that
Mhm.
probably helped you with presentation. Now you've done the training, that's helping you with the official moves. How did it feel to be booked on your first match, see your name on the card, and maybe almost a little bit of the realization that you're actually doing this?
I don't think I ever really soaked in that moment enough at the time because I was maybe 4 months after I started training. I had my first official match in front of a crowd, which was with a very young hacker, Scotty O'Shea.
Oh,
I
wow.
think he was 13 years old at the time. And the entire match, he's crying for his mommy. That's the character that he was playing at the time, and I'm trying not to laugh. Like, I just don't. I think it was there was. I remember there being nerves going into it, like, oh, okay, this is in front of people that aren't just my friends in our backyard. Like, this is legit, but it felt like in the same sense of like going to work. It was like, this is what I like. I chose to do this. This is I'm going to do this. This is a job. I don't think I ever really soaked in enough of that moment of being like, oh, this is happening. It was like, yeah, of course this is happening. This is what I've been spending the last like months training for. Okay, let's go. And I can reflect back on it being like, it's the only time my mom ever saw me wrestle so far. Like, it was, I don't even remember. Like, I remember the date, but I don't remember like what time of the day the show was, where we were on the card, anything like that. I just know that I won. And I don't know why. I don't know what the point purpose of it was, but it was the first time I used like the Mark Shaw name, because when I was doing backyard, I used another variation of that name. And like, that's the key things, like things from the match, but like the emotions from that moment, I don't think I let them soak in enough. I was just like, nope, this is business. Let's go. Like, this is what we wanted to do. And I kind of just went in it and just kind of went with it and never really let that absorb in with me at the time.
You mentioned that that was the first time you used the Mark Shaw name. I want to
Yeah.
ask you a little bit about your creative process because that's something that could have started as early as watching wrestling and fantasizing about what you would
Mhm.
do if you were in that situation. And of course, character is always a constant evolution.
Yeah.
But how do you approach that? How do you see yourself, and how do you want the audience to come out of a show thinking this is what Mark Shaw was?
That always depends very much. Like, I would say most people say their wrestling characters them dialed up. I say most of the time my wrestling character is me dialed down. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I don't talk as much as a character as I do it myself. I'm a lot more animated than my character is. It depends on where I'm working, what that company needs from me. If I'm being a guy with a bigger stature, being a little bit wider, I get put more into the bruiser or kind of like monster role. You're there to beat people up. I don't need to do more than express with my face or my body. So, like, I look at everything from a different approach. Some places, like when I worked at Crossbody, I was super. Like, I started off as a monster character. By the time I got the heavyweight belt, I was this manipulative narcissist, like conniving Boris to like help me keep the belt. And it was the polar opposite of everything else I was doing everywhere else. But that made that version of the character special. I go with the approach that everywhere I'm working is every storyline requires a different version of Mark Shaw. Some of that evolves over time and evolves as the story evolves in one company or another. But most of the time, it's a little bit different. There's a different aspect. If I'm a baby face, I'm usually more of an everyman. I don't have washboard abs. I look more like the common man than a lot of the other guys on the card do. And that is my appeal as the baby face. I am just like you guys, just I'm trained to do this. When I'm the heel, I am just like you guys, but I'm better than you because I'm in here doing this and you're not. You're paying to watch me. There's just taking different aspects of personality and applying them to what the story needs, what the company needs from me, and going, okay, well, how do I make it this version of Mark Shaw? How do I be? Am I quiet? Am I silent? Am I an asshole? Am I, whatever? Like, how am I changing that character to apply to what this promotion needs, what this match needs, and what my opponent needs me to be?
Okay. And if I may, I do want to just compliment your versatility because when I did first see you, the first thing that came to my mind was Bruiser. It was a very imposing, stoic figure. And then by the time, and I did get to see some of those shows at Crossbody with Boris, I saw just like that very straight-faced humor. And it's not always over the top, flamboyant humor that you see in wrestling. It was a very, very subtle, very expression based thing. So, absolutely complimentary to all of the versatility that you've been able to do. Now, you've had a very wonderful career thus far. And I do want to ask, like, what are some of the highlights that you've had in your career so far? And what are some of your future goals?
Some of the highlights I can think of from my in-ring career, definitely my title run with Crossbody. I really enjoyed working with Mikey Jenkins, working with Boris, all of the people I got to work with. Like got to work with Speedball during that run, so that was
Wow.
a lot of fun. Um, I think my brief kind of in and out run in PWO with the Internet Belt when I was feuding or kind of working matches with Crystal Moon. I was really happy with that. I feel did a lot to help her elevate her character there. And that, like, even though she's the one who beat me for the belt, I felt like that elevated both of us in a way, but it like humanized my character. And I was really happy with how all of that went. Um, Having opportunities to work in a lot of different places. Never got long runs, but I got to work at C4 briefly back in the day. I've got to work with A1. Those were always kind of like, I've been everywhere. And that's kind of a nice thing too. There is very few places in Ontario's history and currently that I haven't worked. So it's kind of like I've been lucky enough to get opportunities everywhere. In terms of where things go, because like honestly I don't know how much longer I have to see how long much longer my body can hold up to it, but like um my run that I had with Death Proof kind of introduced me a little bit more into like death match wrestling, so that's something I'm willing to dip my toes into a little bit more and see more of that. um I think I want to continue being more of like in a mentor role to a lot of young people in the business as well, not necessarily training them, but like life and wrestling have a weird way of colliding with each other in negative ways. I had to experience a lot of that in my career, so I enjoy being on these shows with these younger men and women and being able to give them wisdom that wasn't there while I was coming up in the business. And that does involve being around and being there. So I'm kind of trying to just be in the rooms with these people and help them while I'm still doing this. Because once this is done, I'm not one of those people that's like, I'm going to retire and come back like a year later. When I'm done, I'm done. I'll probably always be involved in wrestling in some aspect or another, but like when I hang up the boots, that's it. So I want to try to get to work with some of these different people that are new or upcoming. There's a couple of people I still haven't just worked with, period, that I want to kind of get an opportunity to work with. So I think that's kind of the goal list. I've been everywhere. I've done that part. I want to now work with some people that are up and coming, some people that I haven't had the chance to work with, and kind of just give back what I can while I have the opportunity to. Because once it's done, sure, I might be around, I might do a manager thing or I might do something like that, but it is different when you're no longer in that locker room. People listen a little bit differently when they know you're getting into the gear the same time they are. I want to have a little bit more of that experience. I want to be able to give a little bit more before I hang it up.
Would it be inappropriate for me to ask you who are some of those younger talents that you would like to get in the ring with and just see a lot of potential in helping their careers grow?
No, it's not inappropriate at all. I'd really like to work with Jay Blast. I think he's a good kid. Never worked with Jack Williams. Like he's been around for a little bit now, but I have never had a chance to work with him. I would say both the Generation Me guys, they're both good kids. I'd love to have the opportunity to work with them. There's a lot of students that aren't officially working yet that I've seen at like New Wave and things like that. That look, I was like, oh, these kids they're coming along really well. I kind of want to still be around when these kids start working because I'm like, I would like to work with some of these kids. There, it's probably more people to name than not. That is an unfortunate part about being in a more veteran role sometimes is that you don't always get to work with all the young kids. You get to work with some of them, but like I've got the opportunity to work with like people like Matt Grant and Crystal Moon and Travis Moore and like Grizzly Mac. I've got to work with some of the young guys and girls as they came up, but there's always more coming up, and it's just like I can't keep up. There isn't enough time, but hopefully in the next like handful of years, I'll get a chance to work with a lot of these guys and girls. So
I love that sense of mentorship that you seem to hold dear. Was there anybody that was really that kind of role for you when you were starting out that could kind of lend an ear and always give you advice, or even up to today that you could reach out to and say, "Hey, what did you see? What can I still improve on?" Because it's a never-ending thing. You always want to be learning in the industry, but you know, I feel like that must have come from somewhere. Is there somebody that kind of instilled that into you?
um honestly, I don't feel like it came from anybody but my own experiences, and I think that it came from there was a lack of it a
Okay.
lot. There was guys in Ontario as I was coming up that did get mentored by people. Nobody really ever took me under their wing, and I noticed as I grew up and as I matured as a person, I realized that there was a real lack of that. There was a lack of people putting themselves out there for mentorship, and then people allowing themselves to mentor other people, because everything always seemed to be, well, it had to come at a cost. What do I get out of this? And I was like, this business doesn't survive if we don't teach the next generation our mistakes, but also like what we did right. And I have like I owe a lot in my life to wrestling. I want, when my time to leave it comes, I want to leave it like Albright says this all the time, leave it better than you found it. I do. I want to leave it better than I found it, but that also means being hands-on with it and giving it something that I thought it lacked, which was mentorship, was what people being authentic in the sense of I want to see you do better because yeah, you are going to take my spot. And right now, I want to challenge you to take my spot, but one day this is going to be your spot. And I want you to mentor the next people. I want people to understand that another person's success doesn't take away from your own. But if you love this business and truly love this business, we're all going to go to different places in it. But the business needs to survive by nurturing everyone's love for it and doing business in more correct ways than just undermining other people and trying to like undercut other people. There is enough room for everybody, and wrestling can be a very cutthroat industry, and that can be very hard on people. It never caused me to self-harm, but there's definitely been issues that arose in my life, and then the negativity that surrounded wrestling led me down those paths. I don't want to see other people have to live through that. Wrestling entertainment industry can be hard. Having someone who's willing to listen to you goes a long way. And I think that I felt a huge lack of that coming into the industry. I don't want to see that come back when I leave. So I'm trying to kind of create an environment where people want to be that mentor. They want to take on that responsibility. And by mentoring young men and women coming in or in their early stages of their career, hopefully they will be able to do that when their time comes.
That's wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful sentiment. I don't want to go too far from that moment of levity to something a little more silly, but I do want to ask you, like, when you're not wrestling, when you're not portraying the Mark Shaw character, what kind of stuff do you like to do to pass the time, hobbies, pastimes, anything you'd like the fans to know about you?
Um, Always been very big into like nerd culture, video games, Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering. Always had an inkling to like the fantasy sci-fi kind of realm. Um, Admittedly, with little kids, I don't get as much time to do all of that stuff, but I also now get to share that with them, so that's a fun thing to do. Um, it's all lately I've been kind of getting into like using my social media platform on Instagram to kind of like spread my own, I don't know, silliness, but like positive message. So that's kind of become a hobby. I don't want to say it's like it's my not my career choice. It's kind of just like, I don't know, I just want to make the space a little better. Sometimes I don't post for a week. Sometimes I post 4 times in a week. I don't know. I'm just kind of just doing whatever like kind of fits in that realm. But it's I don't know. When you're a parent, you don't have as much time as you think you do, and then you have opposite schedules with your partner. Feel like the at a certain point in parenthood, you get to this point where you're like, do I have hobbies anymore? Like, do I do things for fun? They're like, yeah, we did that for fun. And be like, that was fun. Yeah, I guess I do that for fun. Yeah. I don't know. I'm very much into that nerd culture thing. I still like I follow all of that very closely. I still do follow wrestling, but not as much. I keep track of it more than anything. I still like to watch it. Them putting WWE on Netflix was great for that because I can just turn it on and watch whatever I like. If I want to see a match, I can fast forward to it and be like, "That's awesome, great, okay." Off I go. Now what are we doing? Yeah, but yeah, anything nerd culture, I'm like super into. During the pandemic, we did like there was Twitch streams of us playing D&D and stuff like that. It was I don't know. I might do something like that again. Just share that part of my life with people.
As a Dungeons and Dragons player myself, I have to mimic that and let people know, like, play it. It's such a great start to just creative outlet, letting
Oh
you
yeah,
explore different sides of your personality and be somebody who you always wanted to be. And that's in a way that's also what wrestling lets you do, but this is in a little bit, less of a physical way, I guess.
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely a little bit. It depends on how into D&D you want to get into. But like I think I started playing D&D when I was like maybe 8 or 9. Um, so I kind of think where my mindset of how I change my character everywhere I go, I think that comes from playing D&D because I would be like, what kind of a character am I going to be for this for this session? And I kind of took that and to be like, okay, well, this company needs me to be like this kind of character. How do I tweak that ever so slightly? And I'll go back to concepts from D&D characters or even just like how does a paladin act a court like in a difference to a fighter? I'm like, okay, well, how does the alignment system work? Oh, you don't want me like I'm a tweener? How do I want to be a tweener in that way? Like, do I want to be chaotic or do I want to be lawful? Like, I kind of use a lot of D&D stuff in my own approach. But sometimes I think explaining that goes over people's heads if they don't understand D&D enough. They'd be like, kind of look at you and be like, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Now,
Yeah.
for anybody who's listening and wondering, the first time I saw Mark Shaw, he was a chaotic neutral barbarian, and I'm sticking to that. Uh,
Yeah, probably.
so before we sign out, I like to ask everybody the same question, and I know that this is going to be a little bit loaded based on what we've already talked about.
Okay.
But if you had an opportunity to go back and talk to a younger version of yourself who was just starting out, what is the most important advice that you would have liked to hear that could also translate to somebody who is maybe on the fence right now about getting into the industry themselves?
Think if I could give myself advice when I first started off, me now to me when I first started off, it's take your time. This isn't going to be everything, but it's going to be important, but you need to understand why it's important to you. There's going to be different parts of your life that are going to be more important, and this is going to take a back seat. Don't beat yourself up about that. Don't let that get in your head. Life is going to get in the way, and sometimes this is going to get in the way of life. And you need to stop, take a breath, and understand what is more important to you in that moment because you sometimes only have moments to make those decisions. It's better to think about the decision you make instead of just making a rash decision that might cost you something on either side.
Amazing, amazing. So before we sign out, can you just let everybody know once again who you are and maybe where they can find you on Instagram?
So I'm Grinder Mark Shaw. You can find me on Instagram at Grinder Mark Shaw. I have an X, but I don't really use it. So you can look there, but it's just me asking why Magic the Gathering prices are so expensive. Yeah, Instagram's the best way to keep up with me. Eventually, I'm going to expand to some other stuff, but I'll probably share that through Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.
This program is a proud part of the Swear to Pod Network.